What's up, TAC listeners? Welcome to another episode of the Artful Chiropractor podcast. Before I get going on this episode, I want to talk to you a little bit about KTC Special Ops. Many of you have heard of it, and if you haven't, highly suggest go check out episode 63 with Dr. Brett and Dr. Jordan, and they discuss the Special Ops intro and what it's all about. But I want to share a little bit about my experience this first quarter, as the sign-up date is coming to an end for this second quarter. It's open right now, but closes April 30th. And a little bit of a background, KTC Special Ops is dedicated towards accountability, discipline, and excellence, and getting to the point where you can overcome those plateaus and reach the capacity to train and serve at the highest level and maintain that excitement and that drive in between training camps. Because we all know what it's like to go to a camp, experience that energy, that connection, that fire, and then be able to leave and have that for a little bit, but then it drops off. So a huge piece of KT Special Ops is that accountability, like I mentioned earlier. You get assigned a accountability partner and you get to check in with each other every single day. Are you doing the movement standards? Are you doing the actual workouts that week? Are you getting your strikes in? That is a huge part that I'm very connected to, and I think that is a huge missing piece within the training that it is now getting addressed. A few other components of the group that are hitting me hard right now are the live artistry videos every single week that are going down, in which you get to watch the setups, the analysis, the adjusting, and then if you're watching it live, you actually get to ask questions during it and have your questions answered right away. So that's something huge for me, because I love to watch something, rewind it, watch it again, and then be able to integrate it if I want the next day. And of course, the movement program within KTC Special Ops is unreal. It's constantly evolving every single month for new movements, new mobility, and just new ways to level up your training. Dr. Lance Von Stay does an unreal job of putting these progressions together and then having videos so that we can all access them, watch them, ask questions, and get feedback on different things as well. So it's a very open communication, and there's no gap between seeing what he's doing and then being able to do it on your own. And finally, the last piece that I want to share is the business and entrepreneurship component of KTC Special Ops, which arguably at this point for me and for many of the docs out there and students who are getting ready to graduate is so important. If we can't keep our doors open, if we can't attract new people in, if we don't have the systems in place, if we don't have the communication, all of this work on training our bodies and our minds and the adjusting is for nothing in a lot of ways. And I just got done having a conversation with Brett a couple weekends ago, and he was talking about how so many of the amazing artists within chiropractic are not amazing artists as it relates to business. So I think KTC Special Ops is doing an unreal job of bridging that gap and being an artist in all of these different facets and totally taking a deep dive into the business and entrepreneurship so we can take our skills and our message and our gifts to the world. All right, that's how I'm feeling about KTC Special Ops right now. Love this family, love this tribe, and so grateful for Dr. Brett, Dr. Jordan, and Dr. Lance, and to really all of this family around the world that are connected and committed to excellence. So if you're not in KTC Special Ops yet, I highly suggest that you check it out, go all in this next quarter, and see the person who comes out on the other end. And make sure to reach out right now. There's only a couple more days till the sign up closes for this next quarter, and it will be officially closed till the third quarter of this year. So if you want to go all in, definitely go to the KTC community Facebook page, reach out to Dr. Brett, Dr. Jordan, or Dr. Lance, and let's get rolling together. And with that, it's time to get this episode rolling. It's been long enough in this intro, but this next woman needs no introduction, as she has been a huge KTC fan favorite due to her earlier episode. I'm talking about Dr. Autumn Gore, and this episode was post-speech at the Artful Convention 2018, earlier this year, and I never got this episode out. So these next few episodes will be conversations that I had with some of the guests after they spoke on stage. And the second half of this interview is Dr. Lance Von Stade and myself, and the topic of that is the bigger picture of what KTC is, and it is that KTC is here for us, we are here for humanity, and humanity is here to evolve. So I think you all will love this episode. Thank you for listening, and enjoy.
We're going.
We are live. We're doing it right now.
Are we live?
We're live right now.
On stuff?
On the podcast.
Oh, okay.
What's up, everybody? I've got Dr. Autumn Hicks Gore here live at the Artful Convention 2018. How are you doing, Dr. Autumn?
Oh, I'm feeling awesome right now. Anxious and awesome.
Just got off the stage, absolutely crushed it. The whole audience, I mean, you had their hearts. I mean, you just go for it. You don't hold anything back, and that's something that I'm just such in awe about. It's beautiful.
Oh, thanks. Thanks for holding the space for me, like, in general. Every time I've had a conversation with you, I think that is one of your superpowers, is holding space and listening. And it gives people a voice. It gives them the space to find their voice.
Thank you. And for any of our listeners who haven't yet heard your first episode, I would highly recommend them right now. Pause this one, go back, listen to the first one.
This was going to be crazy.
So the second one has a little bit more context, but what were you expecting coming into this weekend, and why did you say yes to Dr. Brett in this request to speak in front of all of us?
I have a say yes policy. So, and I have a check-in with innate and say yes policies. So when Brett and I got on the phone, and he described that he wanted to create a space, a creative space, and it was like a minute into it, I said, okay, I'm in. And I just asked, I check in with innate, and I don't mean that supernaturally or esoterically. I mean that like inside of my heart, somewhere in between my heart and my stomach, I'm like, yes or no. It's a yes.
I love that. I think I'm getting better and better at that, of just trusting that space, of just like listening to my intuition and what it comes through. Because before there was a lot of, it could be like negative self-talk. So you're just like trying to distinguish like what's real, what's true, or what's like in my head. So I'm curious, how have you been, or how do you teach others to do that, of like listening from in before you make that decision?
That's right, because the name of my talk was The Art of Listening.
I
never got around to it.
Yeah, that's okay. That's how some things happen.
The Art of Listening. I think ego speaks in excuses, and innate speaks in reasons to me. And my ego's speaking all the time, so it'll have excuses as to why I should or shouldn't do something. It speaks in shoulds and shouldn'ts, and excuses. And innate speaks in reasons that are gentle suggestions. You could. You could or you couldn't.
Okay. So you kind of just, that ability to distinguish the two, you just know, like, okay, that's ego, or that's like innate.
That's how I identify it in myself, after years of stalking myself. So I've spent some days, years ago, I haven't done it in quite some time, but stalking myself, every thought that would come up, I would try to write down, until I got exhausted from writing them down. And then a day or two later, taking the time to analyze the thoughts that I had and see what were thoughts and what were thought flashes. What was my mind and what was my voice.
Right. Okay. So this last talk here, I mean, the birthing process and birthing the human or the being inside, I mean, it just runs so deep. And just the chiropractors that you've influenced and the students that you're influencing, it's just like breaking through those barriers. I mean, I just haven't heard anyone talk about it like you've talked about it. And obviously you've had these birth experiences with your children that have had amazing influences there, and you've been able to like give that analogy between the two. But like when you got up on stage, we're talking about the birth with Dr. Daryl Blackburn and then Dr. Jarrett Browning. What do you mean in that context, I guess, with a doctor or a student? Yeah.
With someone that's not pushing a baby out of
exactly.
the vagina. So there's the you that you have that's been domesticated.
Right.
And that's been created. And it's the persona that's you. And if you think about it like a mask, and you've gotten so good at putting on that mask. And as a child, there were certain feelings in your family that were okay to feel, based on whatever your family's history was. Some were okay to feel, some weren't. And so the ones that weren't, you weren't allowed to express. And your essence is here for expression. You're here to express yourself.
Yeah.
And so I'll describe it this way. A mom was in the office this week, and she's pregnant, but she asked me for advice about how to handle her toddler. And she was like, how do I take this space that I'm feeling right now after being in alignment, this space of alignment and connectedness, how do I take this home? Because sometimes I want to look at my toddler and say, you ruined my life, and I hate you right now. And he's screaming, and he's tearing up stuff, and he's doing all this. How do I take this space into home? I said, well, if you focus on the what of what he's doing, you're going to get into the downward spiral vortex with him and end up in the crazy hell with him. Yeah. Or if you focus on the why of why he's doing it, expressing himself. And the bigger why of why are you parenting? So Tommy and I, our whole goal of parenting is to raise children that can wildly, wholeheartedly express themselves. Because as a child, if you were allowed to wholeheartedly, completely express yourself, you would grow into a wholehearted adult rather than a cold-hearted adult. Cold-hearted just meaning protecting your heart, not meaning cold-hearted snake. Look into his eyes. You know what I'm saying?
I know what you're saying.
But if your heart is cold and protected because it wasn't safe to express yourself, then it's time to rebirth that essence. Right. And that's what I saw Daryl and Jarrett and countless other people do, is find the courage to find, and Daryl said it from stage, but the best version of themselves, really the truest version of yourself. Right. What does it look like for you to be yourself? What are you really feeling? What do you really want to say?
Yeah.
And do you have the courage to push it out?
Right. And that's what it is. So many of us did not grow up being able to fully express ourselves. And I think I expressed that in the podcast as well. Just the societal norms, especially male, female, feminine, masculine, all of that. And now we all get another chance to rebirth ourselves. And it takes massive amounts of work. And like you said, it was just one little piece of what it takes during your talk today, and we really didn't. You could have talked probably for 5-6 more hours.
I wanted to. I know I don't want to. Like the whole 15 minutes before, I'm like, why the fuck did I come to California? Why am I doing this? And then halfway through, you're like, oh, this is why. I remember the why. Because I want to remind people that it's safe to express themselves.
Right. So this year we're really trying to focus on these action steps, and everyone's going to get so excited after this weekend, and I think a lot of the artists and speakers like yourself have done great jobs with action steps, but this little time here, I'd love to ask you kind of tomorrow in terms of doing that work and trying to break through and start that birthing process of our own. What would you say to our listeners of just actionable steps?
I'm going to go back to the exercise that we did right at the end of my talk.
Yeah.
But it's something that you can do every single day to check in with yourself and see where you're activated. There are wounds and experiences that you had your whole life. You didn't shut up easily.
Right.
There was a time where you talked, and it took a lot to get you to shut up and stop expressing yourself. That was not a fast process. And so this is not going to be a fast birth. Hell, I don't know, maybe don't let me limit your birth speed. But it's a matter of every single day checking in with the filter that you're seeing the world with and committing to clearing it, committing to clearing the subluxation above the atlas. The subluxation above the atlas shows up as self-doubt and minimizing yourself. And the way the wounds show up is, like I said in the talk, rejection, abandonment, humiliation, injustice, betrayal. And you just write those 5 words out. You can say them to yourself once you have them memorized, but write those 5 words out, and whatever is magnified that day, go to that memory and find a safe place. And if you can't find a safe place to scream it out, scream it into your pillow. Write it 1,000 times, but say, I was rejected by blah, blah, blah. I was humiliated by blah, blah, blah. And today I set myself free. And so right after the talk, I had a woman come up to me and say, oh, I feel like I just, and she said, oh, I'm a midwife, but I feel like I just birthed a part of myself. And she was bawling.
Oh, my God.
And she said, I've been calling myself divorced for the last 2 years. And the word that you said was humiliated. And I've been humiliated because I'm 27 years old and I'm divorced. And I yelled it out. I'm humiliated because I'm divorced and I'm free. And she's like, in this moment, I'm single. And I'm happy.
Oh, that's so beautiful.
And she showed up in this moment. And she said, do you think I'm free? I said, in this moment, you're free.
Yeah.
And tomorrow, you might have to set yourself free again.
Yeah. It was so interesting to hear you like list out those 5, and we were all laying on our backs just for our listeners who are trying to get a visual, and one just speaks to you in the moment. So it's like such an active exercise that you can do, whether it's like your journaling or your morning pages or whatever it is, like what's up for you in that moment, and then just speak it out loud. Like I know for me, like I don't know, for whatever reason, like rejection came up, and I look back at past relationships in high school, like a really bad one, and how I can trace that back and think of it how just closed off I've been to different experiences like that, and now trying to open myself up again. But like it really spoke to me right there, and it's just like so cool to do that work. And so many people talk about the work, but it's just like to have actionable steps like this is so powerful for our listeners.
Right. And don't be afraid to grind. Don't be afraid of the work, of the self-work, of showing up in your office to work. Don't be afraid of the work.
Right.
The work will set you free. I said that like concentration camp style. I don't mean it like that shit. But I mean it like no one can come and do the work for you. No guru, no book, no motivational speaker, no seminar. You could lay there all afternoon and receive all of this information unless you do the work and continue it into next week. This will be a jacuzzi experience.
Right.
And you'll be watching from the sidelines with a closed, cold, judgmental heart.
Yeah, exactly. And that's another misconception. I think a lot of students and docs who come to these and they look at the speakers on stage and they're just like in such awe, but it's like you've gone through some major shit. Like you put in some major work, and your ability to, I guess, express that shows us that like, okay, she's done it, I can do it. And it's so powerful.
And you want to bring that presence to the people that you serve.
Yeah.
Every day, that if it is possible for me, it is possible for you. And I am not perfect. I am an example. I'm not an exception.
Right.
I haven't had a supernatural life. I've just had an extraordinary amount of willingness to do the work.
Right. And then your patients, I imagine it's such a different relationship with your patients. I think they'll see you as equal. Like you're not this doctor, this healer that's like way above them. Like you're going through the same things. You're just a little bit farther along the path, and you have different strategies in place.
It's support. I see it in labor. So when you go to the hospital, they call it labor management. You'll see on the screen, oh, this is labor management going on. A natural process, as if it needs to be managed.
Right.
Emergencies need to be managed. The shit hits the fan, it needs to be managed. Natural processes need to be supported and observed. Chiropractic offices are not emergency rooms. Our clients and our patients and our folks and our whoever you want to call them don't need to be managed. They need to be supported and observed and listened to.
Mm-hmm. And the final little segue that I would love to finish this little chat with is your description of subluxation and going from a fear-based communication of chiropractic and subluxation to just hope-based, and that the body is amazing and it adapts with subluxation with all the experiences that we get through. If you can integrate it, the body subluxate beautifully. And then as a chiropractor, we get the chance to allow our patients to reintegrate those experiences. That is it makes the most sense. I guess the first time all the way through school that it's been explained the way you explain it, and I just thank you for that. And if you want to expand on that, go for it.
You said it perfectly. You said it perfectly. Reggie Gold describes it in 3 paradigms. Mm-hmm. So the first paradigm, he said, was the chiropractors that came out and said, if we adjust someone, it can heal anything. Chiropractic cures everything. And that was like BJ and Dee in like 1906. You know, their advertisements in 1906. Yeah. And then it evolved into what he called the second paradigm, which was chiropractic is symptom specific. And it would say someone could come for, they have a migraine, or someone has infertility, or someone has whatever, list of 5,000 things.
Yep.
And someone could come for this, and it's symptom specific. Yep. And if it is gone too far, then we refer out. That's the second paradigm. It's gone too far. Hi.
Oh, what's up, Dr. Ian Davis Tremaine over there?
No, we're not live. We're just fucking
We're
off.
live here, just not there.
This is that was awesome upper cervical moment.
Yes.
But the second paradigm is symptom specific, and it also leads the only people that could receive care have symptoms, and then we become an alternative to medicine in that second paradigm. And some people think a superior alternative to medicine is the way it was peddled. The vast majority of chiropractors are playing inside of that second paradigm. And then there's a third paradigm that Reggie tried to birth. That was his baby to birth, which was he wanted everyone checked regardless of symptom or disease.
Right.
His goal for taking care of people was not the result. It was the adjustment and the alignment itself. And so his was, I'm turning on the power, I'm letting innate do its thing. But the third paradigm still lives in that place where the subluxation is nasty and almost an invader. The way it's been explained?
Totally.
And maybe this is just our generation, the way we're hearing it, because I've offended many by talking about it this way. But this fourth paradigm, I think that we can birth, acknowledges that the body does adapt, that the body does store stress. So everything we've experienced is received through the nervous system in our internal and external environment. We receive it. If we can't integrate it or detoxify it by peeing it out, pooping it out, crying it out, sweating it out, screaming it out, then we store it for later. If we can't integrate it in this moment, we store it for later. And inside of that is the power and potential to evolve, to integrate.
Right.
And
it protects us in that moment, that short term, if we can't process it. Would you agree with that?
I would agree with that.
Yeah.
And long-term left, I definitely think it has devastating effects.
Right.
Just because I think it's intentional doesn't mean I don't think it can have a negative effect.
Exactly. Okay, so now I have one last final question, actually. Most of our patients, practice members, come into our office with pain, and that is just the fact at this moment, and I'm not limiting, but it seems like that's what it is.
Oh, yeah.
And
with some sort of symptom.
Right, some sort of symptom.
Request.
To get them to come in to spend that much time and that much money, like it has to be something of that nature. And how do you, I guess, meet them where they're at, acknowledge why they're coming to see you, but yet open the door of possibility of what can happen?
I meet them where they're at, without abandoning where I am.
Right.
So I meet them where they're at, first of all, to understand the language of symptoms. Like, where are the source of your symptoms? The wisdom inside of you is making the symptoms that you're experiencing. And there are symptoms that are life-threatening and need to be suppressed. There are symptoms that you innately know these need to be suppressed. I'm bleeding to death. My bone is coming through my arm. My left side has stopped working. There are emergency symptoms that need to be suppressed and addressed in that way, and managed, like we were saying in the medical model. And then there are symptoms that need to be expressed.
Right.
And if you can take responsibility, not like guilt and shame, for responsibility for the choices in your life, and some of the choices you haven't made, some of just the experiences in your life that have come into it, have led you to where you are right now.
Right.
And the only way out is in.
Yep.
So just because you're meeting them where they are doesn't mean you have to leave them there. But if you only go bone deep on the first visit, you lose the opportunity to go soul deep. And I go soul deep on the first visit, it doesn't mean I don't go through bone and muscle and fascia to get there.
Yeah.
But I want them to know what we are about from the very beginning.
Right. And so that's the thing. I think that's a big contradiction that I see is like maybe you meet them where they're at for too long, and then all of a sudden you drop in something different. They're going to be like, what? This whole time you're talking about this, and now you're talking about something else.
I make it with a question or a statement of, I want to make sure that our objectives match. And I have yet to meet a client who says, oh, I'm really not interested in birthing some part of myself or knowing a deeper part of myself or being more connected with myself. I'm just not into that. Well, hell, it could be they didn't come back and I don't remember. But
right.
Most humans are open to, conscious elevation.
Something more. All right. Where can our listeners stay in touch with you? Are you up to anything more going on this year?
Yes.
Let us know where we can stay in touch.
You can find me at innaterevolution.com.
Okay.
You can find our practice at cafeoflifedallas.com. And we're going to have the Evolution Revolution in Dallas in September.
Okay.
And I think a lot of these folks will be around.
Heck yeah.
We'd love to have you there.
I can't wait. Sweet. I'm really excited. Thank you so much, Dr. Adam.
Thanks for having me.
All right.
Peace.
Peace. Welcome back, brother.
Hello, Ray. Hello, KTC. What up?
Not too much, man. I'm still riding the high, as I said in the pre-chat, from the level 1 in Oakland with all the facilitators around the world, the super camp as it was called. But I imagine you are riding an even higher high as you just got back from a level 2 in Georgia.
So high. Yeah, man. It bounces back and forth for sure. The waves come crashing down pretty hard when we're at the camp, and you're sitting there taking them in the chest and feeling so strong. And then, the next day, it's like, man, I just realized how powerful I was taking on these waves. And then you have bruises on your thighs from doing jumping jacks for 40 minutes.
I just saw that on Facebook. You have to give some context to that. I have no idea what that's about.
Feeling very human. Feeling very human today. Yeah. Yeah, I'll save that story for a little bit later. I want to build some context for it because that was the biggest takeaway of the weekend for me, that activity, because it also started off as something that was almost just in transition that we've done in the past that I've never had a significant takeaway from other than a positive emotion. And this time it rattled me very deep. And it ended up being a stimulus for a conversation I had with myself for the rest of the camp that brought me to the epiphany that I shared with you in that text that I sent you, and that was also posted from the KTC page today. And that was that what this whole thing is, KTC, and the 3 steps for me that kind of put it all into perspective, that KTC is here for us. We are here for humanity, and humanity is here to evolve. And that activity, it really was, I think, the most blatant and obvious situation where if it wasn't for the KTC culture, I would have failed in that moment. And I realized that in so many moments over the past few years, the KTC culture has been there to support me in the moments where I would have otherwise failed, or I would have otherwise made decisions that I couldn't undo, and I would have been on a completely different trajectory, a completely different path, and I don't think I'd feel as satisfied with my life as I do right now. And so I was feeling really grateful. And to give the context, I guess I'll just go into it.
Let's do it.
Dr. Derek Poussin was a facilitator at Logan and is now practicing. And he was a wrestler and had an activity that his team would do pretty often. And it was the 30, the 15 jumping jacks out loud as a group. On 15, you close your eyes and silently continue on for the next 15. And so no one can see each other, but you can hear the claps and the rhythm. And all you have to do is keep your eyes closed and count silently in your head from 16, 17, up until 30. On the 30th, you close your arms and legs, you finish, and you're done. The whole group blows out the candle of that session, and in unison feels very amazing. And that did not happen this time. First or second time, it's a little funny, like, oh, wow, okay. Yeah, this might be a little more challenging than we thought. Let's get this done. And as facilitators, we've done this multiple times, so we know that it's rare that a group gets it the first time. So you just keep cruising through. But then like 5 or 6 into it, you're starting to say like, man, well, we're already over the time where this session was supposed to end. Now, in my mind, because we're not talking about this out loud, I'm just saying in my head, like, okay, I wonder if people need to go home. I wonder if people are just going to start walking out, but we're going to keep going. So then we knock out another one. Nope. Knock out another one. Nope. Getting up to 10.
This is at the end of the session, training session?
End of day one. We're at 10 sets of 30 jumping jacks. People are starting to get uncomfortable. So now people are starting to raise their hand, making suggestions to the group on, here, hey, you need to, here's a strategy. Focus on the numbers. Just close your eyes and just focus on the numbers. And then the next set, that person would be the one that loses count.
That's always what happens.
The whole group starts turning in on that person. And then we come back. Here we go again. And the whole weekend we were saying something Brett had read in a book, that excellence is not so much what you do, it's what you allow. And I think we've all started realizing more and more acutely that something that sets KTC apart is that we hold standards so high. And it was probably around the 15th set of jumping jacks that I had literally given up. I was done. I knew already as I was counting, if we don't make it this time, how am I going to close this group out? How am I going to bring people together and we're just going to okay, we'll just learn our lesson and man, we got work to do. But then we finished and Dr. Damiano, he was like, no, someone said the word 16, we got to do it again. And so it kind of let me off the hook of oh man, Damiano wants to do it again. Okay, I'll do it again. Now I'm in it. And the next time we go through, boom, nope, didn't make it. 17. 18, 19. We are up in, the hundreds and hundreds of jumping jacks. These are simple ass exercises, but now our hands are throbbing and our legs are getting welts on them because you go all in. You think you're going to do it a couple times. So you're smashing the thighs. And again, I just gave up, man. I was done. And then the next time Brett said, no, it wasn't clean enough. And then I gave up again. And the next time, I think it was a guy, Logan from Life U. He said, no, man, it wasn't good. We got to do it again. And we just kept going. And I just realized, man, there is no way that I could have facilitated this group in a way to get it done by myself. And all I was doing was counting the reps, leading the go. There were people that would jump in and suggest, we got to take some breaths. We got to reconnect as a group. And then we would drop in again. Some people would say, man, here's another strategy. Then we'd drop in again. And we finally got it. And someone said they had actually counted the minutes, and it was 33 minutes of just repetition after repetition after repetition. A little more discomfort, a little more tension in the group, a little more questioning of whether this was worth it. And in the end, my biggest takeaway was that KTC is here for us because we are human and we will fail. And when it gets hard and it doesn't seem like it's going to be worth the payoff because it's just a damn jumping jack, we're not going to have to be alone in the moment making that decision to continue to go. And we finished as a group, and now we know we have the capability to do the things that we might not be able to do by ourselves because we have this global culture supporting us. And that was big for me, man. It shined light on so many aspects of my life, that whether it's the way I eat or think or speak or adjust or check people or talk to the people that come into the office, how I run my staff here, why we do 49 breaths in the mornings, and some days I'm not feeling it, but then Dr. Adrian's feeling it. And all over my life there is accountability because people know that we want something more out of this life. We want to contribute to humanity in a higher way. And the only way we're going to be able to contribute more than what they're getting now is if we raise the bar. And because we are human, and because we go in waves of action and recovery, we can't be a solo person pushing the bar continuously and constantly holding it up, because we have to breathe out. And when we breathe out, someone else can breathe in and bring more life to the movement. And I'm acutely grateful for all of the facilitators that have continue to hold that bar high for people on campuses. I'm grateful for the lead facilitators who have stepped up and start holding the bar high at level 1 so that we can take a big breath and start pushing the level at level 2. I'm grateful for my family at home that holds space for me so that when I do go on these trips and I come home and I need a little bit of recovery, boom, I can actually exhale because my wife Monica has inhaled and got pizza for me, and I'm just like, oh my God, really? This is perfect. And it crosses all the boundaries of our lives. How we develop ourselves as humans, how we develop our cultures and communities, and I think those directly impact the impact we're going to have on humanity at large. And it was just jumping jacks.
Just jumping jacks that have now left bruises on all of your guys' thighs. But man, that's so powerful and inspiring, man. I don't have too much reflection. I mean, I think you just crushed it right there and really just summed it all up on what it is that we're doing. But what definitely comes up...
I do want to... Okay, cool. Yeah.
Yeah, I was just going to say, I mean, the fact that so many different people, I think, that were jumping in to, trying to find strategies. And I'm curious of the balance of like anger, but yet coming together and giving strategies. Like, it seems like there was like an ideal tension state with that created this, huge takeaway from the end of it. And because I think once we all get into practice, it's harder and harder to have this like family and this tribe, things change a little bit. And, just hearing you speak like that just gets me so excited that I know that I'm going out into practice in a very scary situation to many, but yet we have this family, this tribe that we're all going to be, some are going to be breathing, some are going to be exhaling, and we're going to be continuing to push each other.
Yeah. That was one of the reflections of Lenny Kriebel, Dr. Lenny Kriebel from Amsterdam. From Germany, practicing in Amsterdam. He's one of the lead facilitators starting up at KTC Europe. And he said, being out in practice, even in Amsterdam, where there is a decent collection of chiropractors who interact and support one another, he says it's really hard to be out in practice and you feel like you're on an island. And he has flown across the world to come be a part of this movement and to try to take and learn what he can so he can go back and try to infuse that culture into Europe where it's also needed. And similar with Dr. Damiano practicing in Naples, Italy. Similarly, he's working in a very busy office and feels like he's a bit on an island, wants to travel across the world to go to camps and connect and then take that back so that he can constantly evolve. He wants to get uncomfortable. He doesn't want to settle for what's possible in his comfort zone. He wants to see what potential exists within him, crack himself open and express that. And by doing so, showing the people who come in to see him what's possible for themselves. And that to me is what I mean by we are here for humanity. The culture, KTC, is here for us in the moments when we are weak. When the container of a camp drops away, within that container, it's a safe space. It's a place where we can scream at the top of our lungs. We can make mistakes when we're adjusting or setting up, or do movements that look kind of silly and no one's going to judge us. But then we go back out in the world and the container drops away. What level do we fall to? And it's KTC, the culture, that holds us to a higher level. It supports us from beneath so that we don't just sink to the level of our training, but we sink to the level of our training at the level that we've been supported by our community. How we show up for humanity is the fact that we as a culture are that for humanity. We are the individuals in a culture setting that are willing to push ourselves outside of our comfort zones, willing to step into brave spaces, not a safe space that's four walls, a ceiling, and a floor that no one from the public can see into, but we're doing this out in the brave space of the world, day-to-day life. And by doing that out in the world, we show others what's possible. We show others that they don't have to be scared to be themselves. They show others that we are there to support them when they fall, and that when it's hard for them to show up, we will still show up for them. By doing that for humanity, we facilitate humanity's purpose, which is to evolve. That is what has brought humanity through the eons to where we are today. is constant and never-ending improvement. This is why species after species has just fallen off by the wayside, and humanity has transcended all these millennia. And some would argue that, yeah, humanity has destroyed the environment, but that has really started to happen more in the last 100 years, and we need to evolve. We need to grow up as a species. We've hit this almost adolescent phase of like not giving a damn about our environment and realizing how powerful we are and autonomous and we can make our own choices and all this stuff. And we've disconnected from our roots like a teenager would do from their family. And it's time for us to grow up. We need to evolve into a better version of our species. And I think that KTC is doing that facilitation to themselves, doing that for humanity and helping humanity realize its full potential and purpose.
Lance, I really want you to maybe touch on this like last little point here of the power of coming to these camps and maybe even traveling to them. I mean, if there's docs listening or students listening who have kind of like disconnected, because I can speak for myself, you know, going back to that level A and TC1, I didn't travel for it, but totally got reconnected to, you know, KTC and the family. And I'm in my 14th quarter, right? And I'm very connected.
Yeah.
As some people would already say, just due to the podcast, but it was like showing up to that camp brought it to the next level for me of this connection. And like I told you on the pre-chat, you know, I like laid in bed that night, just like looking at flights to Atlanta, debating in my head whether or not I could, you know, drop the money for it and not go to my board reviews for part fours. But like there was something special about that. And I just know that traveling to it and just seeing people around the world who are, like you said, doing the same thing that you're doing at 6:00 in the morning, it's like so powerful. And I don't know, I want our listeners to get that, the power of even traveling and showing up to these camps, because there's something special that happens. And in terms of that container afterwards, I think it builds it. So it's like, I don't know, it gets greater and greater. So yeah. I don't know what my question was, dude, but it's important to get out there and freaking experience this, man. Like, yeah, you know, and
I think from practice, what I'm taking from what you just said is that you thought you were already connected, being a part of the podcast, being at school, still training, and yet you showed up to something in your backyard and had your paradigm shifted again, you know, at a surprising level at something that can seem like it's the same old experience. And I mean, my favorite book is The Alchemist, and that to me is the story. He shows up to his home to find his hidden treasure, the thing he had looked all the way around the world for. And every time that you do that cycle, this was a big piece of my talk on Saturday night, was we're entering another cycle of evolution known as a revolution. One revolution around the sun, one cycle of evolution for humanity is a revolution. And every time we go to a training camp, to me, even being the facilitator of the training camp, for me, it is another cycle of evolution. I'm having to pour over the same material over again, but I look at it with something novel. I never go into a training camp without reading another book in between and applying something from that to the work, or show up to the training camp again without having listened to everything Brett is talking about, or listened to what the closing circles have to offer, or having conversations with people who had just done the camp and what their takeaways were, which adds more nuance to the old. And this is the process of evolution. I've been studying integral theory a lot recently, and he talks about transcending and including. And this is how the present moment envelops the previous moment. The previous moment becomes the object of the now. And in the now, because we are the ones experiencing it, we add everything we've ever experienced or have been in our lives to the expression of that past in the now. And that's some heady ass shit. But when you break that down, something that has existed in the past, even if it's someone singing a song on the radio, as soon as you do a cover of that song, it is no longer that song. It is now you doing a cover of it. You have added your own personal voice, tone, how you move your body as you do it. It's a completely new performance and experience. And this kind of battles the concept of intellectual integrity. Intellectual property. Because anytime something has been said, it doesn't mean it belongs to somebody, because that person, yes, they created their piece of it, but everything that they had been given up to that point is not being acknowledged. And that's the same thing when we take something and add our nuance, add our novelty. It evolves whatever material that we are sharing. And so I'm able to do that every time I go to a camp. And I've heard time and time again of people that show up to these events, and although they've done 10 of them in the last year, in the case of Dylan Mon, he's been to more camps than I have. And
wow.
Jamal Frooster's been to 8. Yeah, Jamal Frooster's been to 8 camps in the last year. I mean, these dudes
give some
back
snaps
to back
to Jamal.
To back. Yeah. Ooh. Collaboration.
Yeah.
They're back-to-back camps, and when one can say that there may be some redundancy in that, if you're finding redundancy at any point in life, it's just a lack of attention. You're just not focusing on all the things that are happening that are making that moment unique. Because no two moments are the same. And if you're just focusing on the same things in 2 different moments, that's not the moment's fault. That's just your brain running over the same old ground. So, yeah, these camps are evolving. The people that are coming are evolving. And I think that it really does serve humanity in a big way, because I'm seeing the testimonials and the stories and the breakthroughs and the increase in quality of my own life through the experience of these camps as a participant and as a trainee, as I learn from all these new facilitators that have stepped up in a big way.
Exactly. And I can't wait to just see, now that so many of us are going to be starting into practice now, it's going to be amazing to just see the level of training, and then, just the processing of what that world looks like compared to the student world, and then just still being able to come together and have this community while in practice. So I'm excited, brother, and I just want to acknowledge you. Thank you so much for taking the time tonight. Really, really enjoyed this conversation. You've gone completely dark on the Skype, but much love to you, dude. Oh, there you are.
yeah, it is now 7:45 p.m. and it is dark.
All right, brother. Till next time.
All right, dude. Love you. Thank you so much for everything you're doing for this. Meeting people out in Atlanta, talking about the podcast, talking about you, and appreciating all the work you're doing. It's really cool to put a voice to this thing, because I think this culture itself is saying things that need microphones in front of them. And we were also really happy that Kyle Glenn came out to do the Level 2 documentary this weekend.
Oh, that's right.
I trust his ability to tell a story, and we'll see what comes of it. Next weekend, we'll be launching the watch party. May 11th, I think, is what the official date might be. We're still going to announce it, but watch party for all those clubs and docs and people who want to gather with colleagues, coworkers, friends, and family and watch a 22-minute documentary on the Level 1 training camp experience. That was released last weekend in a private screening, and we'll release it publicly, I think, May 11th. And we'll try to facilitate everyone kind of doing simultaneous organized watch parties so that we can all kind of give a little impulse and boost to the movement. And I imagine we'll also be doing some Q&A sessions and giving some time and love and energy to those that do watch it and maybe have some questions and want some clarity and what to do next after downloading that into their minds.
Sounds good, brother. Peace, dude.
Cool. All right, dude. Thank you so much. Peace.
Yep. All right, TAC listeners, if you enjoy this one, head over to iTunes or Stitcher so you can subscribe to the podcast and get an automatic download of our newest episode each and every week. While you're at it, we love a review, a comment, a rating, anything that will allow us to reach more docs and more students and continue to raise the bar in chiropractic performance training. If you haven't yet checked out the artfulchiropractor.com, you can do that for show notes for this episode and previous ones, along with any of the resources that our docs are dropping. And if you haven't yet checked out the Kairos Training Culture Community Facebook page, you have to get there, send a request with a message of who you are and why you want to be a part of the group, because there are so many amazing golden nuggets that are being dropped every single day that are elevating the chiropractic performance game. So with that, I hope you all have an amazing rest of your week as always, and until next time, peace.